Shut up and sit down.
Howdy and salutations. Welcome to Broken Table Commentary, a three-man creative debate discussion all about the greatest of fake sports, professional wrestling. Every week, we each bring a different topic to the table. The topics can be ridiculous or serious, opinion or factual, creative or not, whatever we feel like. And as always, the topics for this week are in the description. On commentary, we have our Mark, the debonair diabetic dad, Lenton.
Fuck me in the glasses.
Our historian, the Scottish boy wonder, Michael.
Hello, I thought we were going to be the Bret Hart fan club this week, but apparently it's the Dennis Rodman show.
And our critic, me, Jessel. I don't know why you ever thought I'd be in the Bret Hart fan club. You can follow us on SoundCloud, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter soon as Broken Table Commentary. I think Twitter will have to be like BTCom or Brote Common. I don't know. It has to be stupid. Because Broken Table Commentary has a lot of letters. Or you can just follow us directly at BrokenTableCommentary.com. Episodes are downloadable on SoundCloud. New episodes are broadcast every Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is episode number 20, Pontoon Table. 20 is a big number. That's cool. Rock on. Go us. Also, if you couldn't tell, Lenton isn't actually here. He recorded his stuff and then went on vacation. So, unlike most weeks, we're trying something a little different. And Lenton recorded all of his responses without hearing us and just recorded them himself. And he did give us the A-OK to respond to him and gave it his responses early. So I'm going to be trying to edit in all of his responses. I spent a couple hours last night editing them and putting them in different chunks. Michael and I have listened to it so we can actually respond to Lenny. And you guys can hear him. And technically, I could have probably not told you that we were doing this.
You just spoiled it for me. I didn't know he was pre-recorded.
So it's gonna be a little bit off, but unlike what we've been doing with one of us having to just read the other person's answers, this time you'll actually be able to hear it in their voice. Hopefully it'll work out. Maybe not. We'll see. How are you feeling today, Michael?
I'm in one piece, which is better than the alternative.
That's true. That's true. Being in any more than one piece is definitely not great. But what you say does bring me up to the only 2 points I wanted to bring up. Because while there's stuff that's technically happened this week, nothing too important. But there are 2 injuries on deck that could absolutely ruin SummerSlam for the WWE, which is less than a week away. Or less than a week away. That's wrong. That's wrong. No, less than a month away. It's the 20th. So, Bayley, supposedly, not even supposedly, she injured her shoulder on Raw. That is a fact. They put up video of her getting checked out by the doctors and a formal statement by the WWE that they don't know what the diagnosis is right now. But Bayley might be removed from her SummerSlam match with Alexa Bliss at SummerSlam, obviously.
Yeah, I saw that one. Although the way they announced it made it sound like it was a kayfabe injury.
See, I thought so too until I saw the video. The video is Bayley's not a good enough actress for me to not be a little bit actually concerned. All I can say is if you know me at all, you'll know that I think good. She doesn't need to be in that main event. Her character is duller than dishwater. She lost clean because she was afraid of a stick. And then with regular standard WWE booking nonsense, they just had her come back and get her win back and get pinfalls and on the champion and non-title matches. Boring nonsense standard WWE stuff. So I hope she's injured, honestly. She needs time off TV. She needs time for people to actually miss her.
I hope she's not injured because that just seems mean. But
Yeah, I realized it as soon as I said it that actually wishing injury on someone isn't
uh,
really the nicest thing. But I don't want her in this match, and I don't want her at SummerSlam. So maybe they will. Maybe it is just kayfabe, and they still keep her away. That'd be nice.
who's the other one then?
Did you see the Shinsuke Nakamura John Cena match on
Yeah,
SmackDown?
I
The
saw it.
the potentially very very exciting but ultimately fairly fine main event of SmackDown that set up Shinsuke Nakamura. Well, I mean, everyone thought it might have been it was one of those dream matches, and it ended up, just being a dream that it'd be a dream match. It was a perfectly fine match. If you don't like one of the two, then you will think it was boring, and if you didn't like both, then you probably didn't like it at all. I'm in one of those camps. You can pick which one.
When I saw it, I thought to myself, I bet you this isn't a match that Jessel's enjoying.
No, the Chad Gable versus Rusev. That was a great match.
Oh yeah,
And I don't
and
even like Rusev's style, but they worked well together. But no, right at the very end, the finishing sequence was Nakamura getting out of the AA by no selling in AA entirely, and then giving John Cena an exploder where Cena legitimately landed straight up on top of his head and on his neck. And I have never seen Cena get injured like that. It is not 100% certain that it's an injury, but with Cena, they don't like to tell people when concussions or that kind of thing happens for Cena. But that looked bad. Like, that was all of Cena's weight dropping on his head and neck on a not complete exploder. And it's the only time I've ever seen the only time I've ever seen Cena actually call for the ref over. Like, there was a moment where Cena lands and he's holding his head and he's hurt, and the ref looks at him and he walks over, does his ref thing, and he leaves. Then on the camera cut back, you see Cena wave the ref back over. I've never seen Cena do that. And you also see Nakamura, you can see him mouth, "I'm sorry."
uh,
Like, this is no bueno. This looks legit to me. This is what do you think? I hope no injury on Cena, because I don't hate Cena. I don't want him injured, but do you think this is all just overselling? Do you think it's a legit injury? What's your take?
well, I just assumed it was a stinger. It looks scary. It freaked everyone out, but he's just. I didn't think it was an actual injury, but obviously watch that space. Um, it did, however, bring me to this morning where I spent a ridiculous amount of time looking up the number of clean one-on-one defeats that Cena has suffered since he became a main eventer in 2005. Um, it's out of interest. So, can you guess how many clean defeats Cena has had since 2005?
See, I'm at a sore disadvantage here because of missing the 5 years of actual Super Cena becoming Super Cena, and
Yeah.
I came back at 2010 where he ruled the roost and literally destroyed people constantly. But if I had to guess, I would say it'd be like Roman Reigns' percentage, which is just a little bit better than half, like 60%. That's gonna be my guess.
Sixty
Because that's
percent. So
Reigns' current
yeah.
percentage.
So how many? Yeah. Well, I don't know how many he's lost overall, but clean, as in no interference or anything. 12 wrestlers in 12 years have a clean victory over Cena in a singles match, and those 12 are earning my historian cruft tonight. Shawn Michaels, Batista, The Great Khali, Big Show, Triple H twice, The Rock, Daniel Bryan, Brock Lesnar, Kevin Owens, Alberto Del Rio, AJ Styles, and Shinsuke Nakamura.
CM Punk had a clean win.
No, he didn't. because
He didn't?
no, the cleanest one he had, Laurinaitis interfered.
Oh, damn it.
So even if somebody ran onto the apron and distracted Cena, so he took a finisher, I didn't count it. Because Big Show won a ton of matches that way, but he only won one absolutely clean.
Goodness.
But yeah, if you look at that list, apart from Del Rio, who is his own worst enemy, and the Great Khali, who is somewhat limited in his walking ability, the whole rest of them, they all won the WWE title after that. So, but yes, it was a solid week of wrestling that was setting up SummerSlam more than anything.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to our first topic.
1.
My topic this week is favorite and least favorite Bash at the Beach main events. Now, for those who don't know, those newer fans out there, the Bash at the Beach was basically WCW's version of SummerSlam. Or I guess not thinking of it as their version, but it ran from 1994 to the year 2000. So that is, how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there were 7 times it took place, sometimes at the beach, which was really neat, seeing a wrestling ring in the middle of the beach surrounded by fans and their hot bods, all tan and muscular. And they were always really attractive, which was always fun to see how attractive. I wonder if they handpicked the fans that would be in attendance for Bash at the Beach, because man, they were attractive. So it was Bash at the Beach, took place every year for that 7 years. So my question was, your favorite main event being the last match on the card, and your least favorite main event. For my favorite, I immediately go to the one that features Hulk Hogan's famous heel turn when he joined the NWO, which is 1996. 1996. Sorry, I was like, that's right, isn't it? Of course that's right. I know my wrestling like the back of my hand, which I have all the stuff written on right now. That's just, it's not a great match, actually. The match is mostly, Lex Luger gets out right at the beginning, and then it's Kevin Nash and Scott Hall beating up Sting. Macho Man comes in right at the end when Sting finally gets the hot tag, and then Macho gets taken out, and then Hogan shows up. It's all NWO offense, and then right when Team WCW gets any taste of offense, we see the Hogan come out in the big turn. But that moment is just such a hype moment that it's easy for that to be picked as a favorite. But another one that is just a fantastic match, doesn't quite have the hype element of Hulk Hogan's giant heel turn, is 1997, which is Lex Luger and the Giant versus Hulk Hogan and Dennis Rodman, with Randy Savage now as a member of the NWO. Now, this is a really, really fantastic match. Lex Luger, as we talk about quite often on this show, is underrated for starters. He is wonderful in this match. He ends up getting the winning fall. He does a submission. He gets Hogan to tap. Dennis Rodman does really, really well in this match. He looks like he's actually been training in the ring. He's pulling off moves. He's doing things like you've seen wrestlers do them for a long time. He doesn't look like, he doesn't know what he's doing. He fits in really, really well, and the crowd is super, super hype. Hogan is playing his coward, but I also am Hulk Hogan, so I know I'm immortal, so I can go in there and still whoop ass because I'm Hulkamania character that he does. So that team is a fun team, the Dennis Rodman Hogan team, and the Giant Lex Luger is a really fun team. It's a really good match, 22 minutes. It's a long match. There's a lot of different things that go on. As far as from start to finish, just great wrestling storytelling goes. 1997 and then the Hulk Hogan Vader match are my two favorites in that regard. I'll barely touch on Hulk Hogan and Vader. It's a steel cage match, and basically Vader is coming in. He's going on this road tour where he's going through all these territories and just beating guys and these different promotions then he's coming to fight Hogan. And Hulk Hogan wins in typical Hogan fashion in the steel cage match. But Hogan, even though he's the babyface, he starts the match off in a very heel way. Like he attacks Vader before the music's even over and is choking him with his shirt and stuff. Like he's doing whatever it takes to beat Vader because they're selling that Vader's a big deal. And that's really cool. That's a fun match, too, for that reason. That Vader really gets sold as a big deal. But the favorite would be Bash at the Beach 1996 with 1997 Lex Luger and the Giant being my next favorite and the one that's more fun to talk about since it's one that, I think most people probably haven't seen.
Like Lenny said, it's Bash at the Beach is interesting. I even included I think I might be the only one between the three of us that did it, but I even included Beach Blast in my watching because that's essentially Bash at the Beach. Bash at the Beach was changed so that for Hogan branding, but they had Beach Blast the 2 years prior, so that's essentially the same thing. It shocked me. Just the enormous number of tag matches for main events for these. I think all but 2 were tag matches.
Yeah, there was a lot of tag matches.
Also, Hogan was only not in 2 Bash at the Beaches.
See, you've just explained here because I got all excited when I heard about this topic because I remember some really good matches. And then when I went to look up the main events, to look them up because I watched them on the network, I couldn't find any of the matches and I've just discovered they were on Beach Blast, and WCW's VHS just popped them on the Best of Bash at the Beach.
Yeah. See, Beach Blast it was the same thing. So I cheated a little bit and I counted them in my viewing. Dennis Rodman actually featured in 3 Bash at the Beaches. He featured in 3 of them. That's more than that is the same number as ones as Macho Man featured.
Yep.
That's more than Lex Luger.
Oh God. Yes, there's a lot of Dennis Rodman at these shows. Dear God.
Michael, what do you call the best, or do you want to argue any of Lenny's points? Because I know I got a million things to say about Lenny's thoughts.
Well, I mean, technically, I just agree with him because the match there that he said wasn't great is actually my best. Arguably the most important match in wrestling in the 1990s because it put an adrenaline kick to the heart of moribund competition, which fills me now. I love early mid-90s WWF. Go on. But I have to disagree here with Lenny because 1996's Outsiders versus WCW match. It's a fantastic match because it's steeped in story and character development.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump in as well. I'm in the same boat. 96 is too hard to argue the emotional impact, and I don't agree with Lenny. I do actually think the match was good from a story perspective and character's perspective.
Yeah, I mean the whole thing's set out brilliantly because if you think about it, we have shades of SummerSlam '92 here, as we mentioned in last week's podcast, because the Outsiders say they've got the third man who will be there when needed. And there's there's the insinuation that he might even be out there in the match already.
It's true. Luger, Savage, and Sting all, at the point of that match, had the finger pointed at them as the potential third member.
Yeah.
Luger, the whole time, he was introduced as an outsider. That was his shtick, and his tweener role in the company worked that way. Savage had the finger pointed at him as the potential guy, and Sting, during that match, gets Luger injured in an accident very early, which sets up both for maybe Luger comes back and turns on them, and maybe Sting did it on purpose.
Yeah.
Like, there is no way to be able to talk about this match without actually talking about the drama build up into it of who is the third man. Commentary was on point. The match was exciting. Nash actually wrestled. He actually tried. Unlike a later Nash match. at Bash at the Beach.
I mean, it's the whole thing, Steve, because obviously you've got Luger and Sting have their whole history where they spent most of wrestling being best friends slash enemies, and they sort
Yeah.
of they semi-respect each other, but they don't really trust each other.
Yeah,
Um,
they literally love each other, but man, they do not know what the other one's thinking, and always are looking over each other's
yeah,
shoulders.
and
Yeah,
then you've got Randy Savage, who you'd think he'd be the most obvious as a former WWF guy, but he's got the most heart in the match because it's like he feels loyal to this company that gave him a second chance.
it's
Um,
true, and also it's good to point out because I was had to explain this to a guy I watched these with that we always think of Macho Man as one character, but he essentially is two separate characters. In the WWF, he is Macho Man Randy Savage, and he's macho and flamboyant. But in WCW, he is Macho Madness Randy Savage,
Yeah.
and he is savage and crazy and unpredictable, as Bobby Heenan says on commentary, the most dangerous man in sports entertainment. Like, he is, like, the WCW's version of Randy Savage is that of a lunatic.
Yeah.
And that's very, very different and very important for this match.
Plus, in early '95, Randy Savage had basically been the face of WCW, and he's really good
Yeah.
at it too. Um,
Yeah, when Hogan was off shooting movies,
Yeah.
he'd already been in WCW, but then Ted Turner promised him movies. So
yeah,
Savage, he won World War III, and then from that point forward, he's a babyface for a while.
yeah.
Yeah,
So the whole thing is like it's a 2-on-3 match where the outsiders game but outmatched. But then, as you said, it turns early when Luger gets caught by the Stinger Splash and concussed, and the camera angle's just such that you can't really tell if Sting caught him deliberately or accidentally. If Kevin Nash just repositioned himself at the right moment so that Luger would take the brunt. They leave it open to interpretation for what the viewer thinks just happened.
yeah.
And then the great thing from that is that Sting is clearly kind of really down about this, so he is not at the races at all. You know, he is just getting overpowered anything he does because he's clearly, you know, a man worried about Luger.
Yeah, and we need to point out that this match also sets up Nash and Hall for where they sit on the card because this is their first actual match. Really, I mean, they've had some matches on TV and stuff, but they never had a real match, and they are on par with three former champions. They are holding their own. It's not like with Dennis Rodman or Karl Malone, which we'll talk about later, and you heard Lenny talk about a little bit, where Rodman could do like basic moves, but that was it. Like he never really had the one up on them. This is Nash and Hall had the one up on these guys. They were equivalent. On top of that, a thing I noticed was Sting actually looked different. And that's really fishy. That was like, I remember watching going, oh, Sting doesn't have his bleached hair, and it's long, and even his colors are more subdued, outsider-esque colors. It's interesting.
And that plays into the whole him seemingly not 100%.
Yeah.
But then he gets a really good hot tag into Randy Savage, who's he's a ball of fire. It's as if the entire legacy of WCW has been left to him and him alone. And he's really good in it. But it rapidly stings out of it, and it's 2-on-1. And here comes Hulk Hogan to save the day. The other half of the Mega Powers, remember? And he chases Hall and Nash out the ring. And everyone's like, oh, thank God. And then he drops the leg drop and poor old Randy Savage.
Yep. One of my favorite stories about this match is Bobby Heenan almost screwing it all up because the brain was in character, so he didn't technically do anything wrong.
Yeah.
But the way that Shivani prefers to do commentary is that if something's supposed to be a surprise, they don't hint it at all. Every surprise, that's how he's run commentary, and at this point he was the head producer of commentary for WCW. But Brain sees Hogan, and just as Hogan gets to the ring, he says maybe he's the third man, and you can just hear Shivani freak out on him. Like, what are you talking about? And then it goes mute for a few seconds, where they yell at each other, and then then it goes back. Like, it's insane.
And poor old Bobby had no idea whatsoever. He was just doing his character for the last, 12 years of Bobby the Brain. He hates Hulk Hogan and assumes he's a villain. Oh, but
and it's you can't remove the amazing promo that Hogan gave as well,
no, it's
because
an amazing
he gave.
Promo.
It's all part of the same main event. But as you've heard Michael and I talk about it now for 10 minutes, we clearly, both of us thought that this was the best one. It'll be interesting if we have the same worst, but we both thought that this was the best one.
I'd definitely say it's like one of the top 5 most important matches in WCW / Crockett Promotions history.
And my least favorite is going to be 1998, which is Hollywood Hogan and again Dennis Rodman versus Diamond Dallas Page and Karl Malone. Does anybody here listening know who Karl Malone is? I'm sure some of you old school basketball fans do, but it's been a while. He played basketball throughout early 2000s, I would say. I could wiki it. I would say 2001, maybe a little later than that. But he was popular in the 90s at the same time Dennis Rodman was. So it was going to be a big deal that he was going to be teaming with Diamond Dallas Page. But he wasn't as good as Diamond Dallas Page. He didn't have he wasn't as good as Dennis Rodman. He didn't have the charisma as Dennis Rodman did. And we'd already seen the Dennis Rodman shtick the year before. And this wasn't nearly as exciting. The crowd wasn't nearly as into it. There's just too many celebrities, too many moving celebrity pieces. It was much more of a let's put the spotlight on the celebrities match. And it's a boring match. It goes almost 25 minutes. Not fun to watch. Hollywood Hogan and Dennis Rodman win against Diamond Dallas Page and Karl Malone. None of the SummerSlam main events or Bash at the Beach main events. Sorry about that. There's a noise happening. None of the Bash at the Beach main events I particularly hate or really dislike, but this one is just the most boring out of all of them. So I definitely pick Hollywood Hogan and Dennis Rodman defeating Diamond Dallas Page and Karl Malone as my least favorite Bash at the Beach main event.
Now, as you might have been able to guess, his favorite is my worst. I think Bash at the Beach in '97 is the worst of the matches. Now, I don't think it was terrible. The Bash at the Beach in general was actually an above-average show, even with all the main events, almost all of them being tag matches. We're talking about the worst of good matches, so I want to make that very clear. I don't, and Lenny made that pretty clear too. It's not like he thought that the NWO formation was bad. It's just we're talking about the worst of a bunch of good things. But for me, the first Rodman match was bad. It was a C-. It was just below the curve, and I got a lot of reasons for it. I don't agree with. Here, I wrote this down. Let me just read what I wrote. That'll make my life easier. Hilariously, Lenny really liked Bash at the Beach in '97, and I very much didn't. This match does all the stuff I hate about NWO Hogan's heel tactics, and Rodman learned how to be a heel from Hogan, which, while it does get heat, it leaves me bored. I think that you can be a heel and keep me entertained, and I didn't think Rodman or Hogan in this match did it. The only move Rodman does is a headlock and an arm drag, and while that's kind of interesting that he's, oh wow, he can do those moves, he actually has a better match than the next year in the Karl Malone match. He actually does more moves, better heel work, better heel tactics. So I just can't disagree with Lenny more. On top of that, I think that Luger and the Giant were woefully miscast. They were out of place as the two baby faces to go against Hogan and Rodman. DDP, it was a better babyface. When I listened, I thought the crowd reactions were opposite what Lenny said. I thought that DDP got way better crowd reactions, whereas the crowd never really completely got behind Luger or the Giant. And the reason why is because Luger had spent previously a whole year teasing a heel turn that never happened, and then being a tweener for the next year. So the audience isn't 100% behind him. And then you have the Giant, who was a heel, and then a face, and then NWO, and then not. And he just, as is normal with the Giant and the Big Show, he just had too many turns, and the audience just doesn't know what to do with him. So while they knew he was a babyface, ultimately this was just kind of a placeholder. The 97 tag match feels lazy, whereas the 98 one uses Malone better, it uses Rodman better, it has a better babyface, the uncrowned People's Champion, versus what should have been the actual champion, but they wasted their money and put the title on Goldberg on a Nitro, which is nonsense, but whatever. That's millions of dollars they threw away on that idea, just for a rating spike, which didn't help them. Regardless, I also think that Malone is in better shape than Rodman, and he actually learned more moves. They did a callback to Hogan slamming Andre the Giant with Malone slamming Hogan, and commentary treating that as just as important, which is really nice. Just in general, I thought that the commentary for the Malone match took things more seriously and more interestingly, and talked about the physicality of Malone and the psychology of, oh, his arms are so long, he should be able to tag in, but he just doesn't know how to wrestle. That's how Rodman really has a benefit on him. He's done this before, so on and so forth. The commentary is really, really good in DDT, in the Malone DDP match, and they're just laughing and giggling at each other in the 97 Rodman match. So it doesn't hit for me. I also think the finishes of both matches are off, mind you. Both matches I thought the wrong side won. Luger getting the win on the Rodman match is weird, whereas Hogan probably should have gotten that win. And then Malone and DDP losing, but then being the ones to stand tall, they just both feel like unnecessary swerves. But regardless, I'm being critical about two things that I think are actually pretty good. They're all average or above. Just for me, the first Rodman 197 is just a little bit worse than everything else I watched, and I actually think the Malone one is the second best Bash at the Beach main event. So that's all my points. Hopefully, Lenny, when you're listening to this, I did a good job of explaining myself without arguing, because you're not here. I don't want to, be a dick and say things you can't defend against. What was your worst, Michael?
I'm always reminded that DDP is very defensive of Karl Malone, because there was a round table on the network. It was on the pre-network, but it's on the network now, about celebrities in wrestling, and JR and all the rest go to town, and Karl Malone being one of the worst overboard instances, and DDP's on the panel, and he defends Karl Malone as someone who took wrestling very seriously, and he trained, and he put his money towards good causes, etc., etc. So that always comes to mind when I see that match, which apparently that match made some money for WCW, so although, it would have made more money? Goldberg Hogan on pay-per-view.
It really, really... No, not at Bash at the Beach. It couldn't have made money there, because they had already been hyping up Rodman, and they couldn't have switched that main event.
I meant in general terms rather than the actual...
Yes, in general, 100%. Totally. Absolutely.
My worst is very obvious, but before I mention it, I just want to point out that when I watched these, I found out the horrific truth that at Bash at the Beach 2000, which is best known for the script rubbish and Russo, and Booker T winning the title out of nowhere after the whole Hogan being bald and quitting.
Oh, right. We talked about that in Shoot Things We Thought Were Works.
But on that night, and I did not know this until this week, Kanyon got a pinfall victory over Booker T on the night Booker T won the WWE World title, and they never did a single thing to reference it ever again.
They referenced it on commentary just a little bit, and then they never talk about it after that night. Yeah.
You know, if I was booking, that would be him with a main event title shot. You know,
At least give him one on Nitro. Yeah,
Yeah.
at least something.
Chuck
Yeah.
Palumbo got a title shot in Nitro and Canyon didn't. Jeez. Anyhow, that was just an annoyance that came. But the worst one is, to repeat the echo, is 97, Rodman and Hogan v. the Giant and Lex Luger.
Interesting. I guess I should have waited to hear so that you and I could have just talked together
Well,
about it. I apologize. I just had everything written down, and to break the fourth wall, last week I was a little bit of a dick to Michael, and I feel really bad about it. So I edited all of that out, and I'm trying to do a lot better, because as Lenny pointed out, we can't really do a debate show. We can do a discussion show. That's even why I changed it in the opening, if you noticed, observant listeners. This is it's no longer a debate show, because the three of us have a much more interesting discussions than we do counterpoint, argument, rebuttal, blah, blah, blah. Sorry, I'm taking over your thing again. My bad, Michael.
Don't worry. I mean, if you'd badmouthed Owen, it'd have been much worse. But don't worry, I'll be getting my Bret Hart related revenge when you least expect it.
I hope it's today during your topic, because you could do it there.
Damn, I should have thought of that. But no, as you spoke so much about the match, I can merely say this: it's epitomised by the man who doesn't look like Sting coming out in a Sting mask, and everyone assuming it was Sting.
Oh, God, that's right. I forgot that was even in there.
And then Luger wins off of not Sting's interference against Luger's team 20 seconds later. The whole thing's just a way to get Hogan to job without actually losing the belt.
Yeah. And then you're right. I forgot all about that, because it's hilarious. The Malone match also had that thing happen with the Disciple, except it wasn't a swerve with fake Sting, and the Disciple was in the NWO at the time, and he was out there for the whole match, so it was different, but it was still essentially the same thing.
Yeah. Oh, the Disciple was Ed Leslie. Bloody hell, Beefcake is everywhere. I'm just googling that, saying, who was that?
Disciple was Beefcake? It was Brutus?
Apparently.
Of course. Brutus has had more appearances at Bash at the Beach than Sid. That's nonsense. He has the same number as Nash. He has more than Hall. He has more than the Giant. Insane.
Oh, man.
Well, yeah, I should have waited for you. My bad.
Oh, don't worry.
But that does mean that we have covered it all. So let's go ahead and move on to our second topic.
2.
This one's mine. I wanted to do something a little simpler, and one I thought was going to be very easy. Spoilers, it was not easy. But I just called it Pair 'em Up. Pair up any two wrestlers that are currently single superstars and rebrand them as a tag team. Do it for each of the major TV shows. So Raw, SmackDown, NXT. And this ended up being way harder than I had intended, because I have said for a long time that you don't need that large of a roster. And I thought the WWE had just the right size roster. I thought it was perfect. But this was the first time actually going through and trying to put these tag teams together. I was like, oh no, SmackDown is really, really thin. They're not being used very well, but they are very thin. Raw has a little bit more wiggle room. NXT has plenty of guys, but even then, it's a little thin too. So I was actually kind of shocked by how thin these rosters were. I don't know how you felt about it.
Yeah, I came up with a team and then realised I was struggling to find the second person for it, because they're all been split up in the roster.
Yeah. So we're going to split these up by show. I'll do the show and then mine, and then you'll hear Michael's, and then I'll edit in Lenny's, and that way we can, if we have any responses to Lenny, we can do that. So first off on Raw, I put together Los Aviadores, Gran Metalik, Kalisto, and Lince Dorado together, all three. First and most foremost, it's an awesome name that WWE has the trademark for still, or at least I'm pretty sure they do. They've used it in the past in FCW when it was Hunico and Epico, who are now Sin Cara and Epico. But the Los Aviadores was awesome. They were really really fantastic. They got super over because of how good of a wrestler Hunico was. And the gimmick then became the Lucha Dragons, which didn't work very well because Kalisto. I don't know, something about him. He doesn't have the same mystique as the other guys. But regardless, Los Aviadores is an incredible name that they already own the rights for. It's a great gimmick. We already have Freebird rules used all the time in with the New Day. So it would be fun to build up New Day versus Los Aviadores in the future. An actual 3v3 match could be fun. And then on top of all that, Lucha tradition of trios championships instead of just duos just is a perfect fit. You have these three guys who aren't doing anything, all baby faces, all in masks. Just pair them together and let them go out there and put on high-flying big matches. Los Aviadores versus the Hardy Boys. Los Aviadores versus the Revival. Turn them heel and have them face New Day. It could totally work. And I personally would change their gear a little bit so that each one of them has a bird reference, just for unifying symbols. All three are birds for Los Aviadores. But yeah, that'd be my Raw team. Grand Metalik, Kalisto, and Lince Dorado as Los Aviadores.
Yeah, well, I like that far better than my choice.
Well, what's yours?
Well, this is going to cut the running theme of me being really bad with names on the spot. I came up with the idea to have two big guys a la Doom. You know the tag team Doom, Ron Simmons and Butch Reed from the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
Aye, that sort of thing. You're two big guys just running roughshod through folk. But I thought I'd take it to the extreme and have it being two big guys. So I had Apollo Crews as the first one, and I was trying to think who I could get. 'Cause I thought there must be lots of tall guys on the roster, and a lot of them were elsewhere, not on the Raw roster, which was annoying. So to avoid taking Titus, because that's essentially almost a cheat at the moment, given that he's managing Apollo, I've gone to pair him up with the Big Show, and this is the new tag team of Jurassic Park. Two big guys, the Jurassic power, shall we say, and they run roughshod, and they can both go, and they're giving Big Show something to do in the last point of his career.
A Velociraptor and a Tyrannosaurus Rex is a Big Show and Apollo Crews. No, I'm into it. That's ridiculous. That's wonderfully silly. I like
Michael.
it. This one's Lenny's.
Okie dokie, it's time for my favorite question of the day. Over on Raw, since this is the lamest one, we'll go ahead and get this one out of the way. And this one is just because in my BTFI, I made this a tag team, and since this question has now come up, I am going to use this. But Titus O'Neil and Goldust will be the Golden Brand. I have them at some point in 2018 being a tag team called the Golden Brand. So I guess Goldust joins up with Titus O'Neil one day because he's down on his luck. And Titus is like, yeah, I like you, you're cool. And then they just basically take the Titus brand and then add gold to it, so there's a lot more gold. It's not one that I really like, I'll be honest, but because I had it in my BTFI, I was like, no, I gotta have it on there. So the Golden Brand, Titus O'Neil and Goldust.
I remember Lenny talking about the Golden Brand. I remember that episode, and it makes perfect sense. Especially that's kind of the exact when you pitched it, it sounded like that might not work. Originally, and then that's essentially how Titus Worldwide is totally working. So that works for me. Titus is a great tag team guy. I really like the Primetime Players. So while I prefer Goldust have a final IC title run before he retires as a solo career, I think this tag team works. What do you think of the Golden Brand?
Yeah, it could work, and Goldust is very talented, and he's still quite talented, and the others cannot. They have their uses, shall we say? They're not. They're not going to be WrestleMania main eventers, but they could fit into spots. I think it would work. quite reasonably.
Yeah. All right. Next up is SmackDown, and okay, so I gotta pitch you a story here for SmackDown, but okay, so the team is Acheron, and it would actually have that creepy pronunciation, Acheron. So this is very far fetched, but I think you're gonna like it. So let me pitch you this story. Kane is doing something, feuding with the Usos, while New Day deals with something else or something. The Usos injure Kane, destroy him, and end up burning him, ending up setting him on fire. Maybe it's a street fight in the parking lot or something. It looks like an accident, and you have them treat it like an accident, like, oh, that wasn't supposed to happen. We weren't actually supposed to put him in a car and set it on fire and the inside burn, or however they do it. But the night that they say that, they then say, well, but we're happy we did it. But after the weeks start going by, they begin to be stalked by someone in the background. And you finally, after a few weeks, you get a good image of him, and it's a completely black and gold motif Kane, wearing the old school Kane mask and old school Kane, completely covered except for his arm. Though I'd probably have him be completely covered to not ruin the reveal. But it'd be this black and gold Kane look, where the flame motif is replaced with coins. So he shows up in the background, he causes troubles, and the Usos are freaking out and they want to know what's going on. Eventually out comes the Usos call him out, and out comes, with this new music, this golden black masked Kane. And the commentary finally points it out that he actually is a little bit smaller than Kane. He actually looks like Kane time traveled. That's not possible, JBL says. He introduces himself as Charon, the guide of the dead to the resting place, and he's made a pact with a powerful man on his deathbed, and he's brought him back. And then, boom! One of the announce tables actually explodes in pyro and fire. You actually have the announce table explode, and Kane is reborn out of it. And Kane and Charon are now Acheron, the guides to the underworld, and they are a new, powerful, damned magic tag team. And after years, maybe a full year, you reveal that it was Darren Young who is playing Charon. To keep that reveal clean, you'd have to introduce Darren Young, who looks amazing, by the way. He is in such incredible shape now. Coming back from his injury, you have him actually have matches, but let him just be the jobber that he was before, just a jobber babyface, but also pull double duty as this hardcore badass Charon. Oh man, it would be so cool. Bring back a cool magic gimmick, and I think that'd be really cool. So Acheron.
That was so crazy. It could have been my choice. I like how you started with, was it Kane is doing something? That's always the best way to start.
Oh yeah, man.
Oh
You like it?
yeah.
I was hoping, because I fell in love with the idea. I really like it.
Oh, I always think the mentalist ideas are the best.
It's true. Rumble in a cell, man. Rumble in a cell.
Oh, good.
Logistics be damned. Rumble in a cell.
It's great that other people are mentioning it now and I don't have to. Oh, I'll see if I can get it trending on Twitter when I set up our Twitter account.
Ooh.
So SmackDown, I have gone for the time traditional big guy, little guy tag team. Because they're always fun. Is there any in the WWE at the moment? I can't think of any.
They broke up Enzo and Cass, so I don't think so.
Plus, I'm not that keen on Big Cass in terms of wrestling, so I was trying to think of it. I picked two people who are very underused on SmackDown, and even though I am far more a fan of one of them than the other, um, they both have their uses, and they both have a sort of a well, one has an in-ring smash style, and the other has a backstage brawling fights with everyone in sight style. So there's a slight in joke there, but I am teaming Luke Harper and Sin Cara here together. Um, and
Okay.
um, and they I didn't actually come up with a story of how to do this. I just took the two people who weren't being used. And again, I'm useless with names, so I just wrote head smashers here, in the basis of Luke Harper's got the clothesline and the big boot and everything, and Sin Cara's got well, he was Hunico, and Hunico was very good with the kicking and all that. So it made sense somehow, and I was coming up with it.
What's their because part of this is you got to brand them. So how do you brand them to look like a team?
Well, I don't know.
All right, I'll let it slide. SmackDown was hard. The SmackDown side was really hard, and I even technically cheated because Darren Young is on the injured list, so he's not really on a show currently. I think they have him listed as Raw, but that's because he was on Raw last 9 months ago or something. So I cheated a little bit too.
So it's Luke Harper and Aiden English, which I know they're a little weird together, but I think Aiden English is a very strong actor. Same with Luke Harper. They're both very strong actors. And their gimmick is perfect silence. So they have a thing against the loudmouth talkers in the WWE. They are cutting audio feeds and stuff before they go out and attack people. They're throwing microphones out of the way, and they beat the crap out of people, and they take duct tape and put it over their mouths and stuff. So that is their thing, is they will do whatever they can to just shut up the WWE universe because they're so sick of all the noise.
As funny as it is, Lenny's caught me really off guard. I can't decide if I think it's too ridiculous or too stupid or too amazing. I'm really interested in silence and all that. I always liked the idea of someone entering without any entrance music, just complete quiet, which Lenny didn't specifically pitch, but I think that makes sense. And another Luke Harper pitch, so, I get it. But I guess I shouldn't really be talking about how ridiculous his is, considering I had an announce table explode and a second golden cane show up. So, I mean, it's all fair.
I was just waiting for you to announce that the second cane was actually Luke Harper, so we were all in serendipity again.
And then we'll do NXT. My NXT tag team, I have a terrible name for. I hope you like it. It's called Hurley Burley. And it's Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch. And I could actually see this one happening. They're two great strikers in NXT. They're two hard hitters. Put them together. That's real strong style, not Nakamura strong style. Like actual break people's noses, constantly make people bleed, get bled because they just hit hard all the time. Put Oni in Danny's gear, that with the zip up, skin tight turtleneck, that Danny Burch normally takes off. So I have them both enter in that. Then I'd use wireframe as the motif that would fit on both. Have one in green, Oni in green, Danny in red, and just let them beat the hell out of everybody. The story would probably end up being something along the lines of how Sheamus and Cesaro got together, because there was a recent Oney Lorcan Danny Burch match that was so freaking hard hitting on NXT. It was so good. And at the end of the match, Danny Burch is like, "Give me one more. Give me one more." And Oney's like, "Yeah, all right." So, they have this we're going to beat the hell out of each other respect. and I think they'd be cool to see go together. I'd like to see Hurley Burley versus Sanity, Hurley Burley versus Authors of Pain, Hurley Burley versus Heavy Machinery versus I haven't seen the Street Profits wrestle, so I can't say anything about that. But I think the two of them could really bring out the best in each other as a team. So that could be really cool.
Yeah, it sounds like it could be cool. I've gone for two people who, as far as I'm aware, there's in singles. I'm a bit behind in NXT, as we know. So what I've done is I'm dressing them identically, complete with the same T-shirt, because it has their their tag name on it. They have, as far as I can recall, a long history together in the Indies, so they can just reference them having shared history, which gives an intro into their tag team. And I am pairing together Cassius Ohno and Roderick Strong. And they've got the tag team name of KO Time. Because you see, Cassius Ohno KOs you with his finishing moves, and Roderick Strong KOs you by having you watch his matches.
I was wondering if there was going to be any shade thrown at Roddy, but you were being so complimentary. I wasn't positive. Well, there it was.
Yeah, set them up.
I get it. Cassius Ohno works for me the same way that Luke Harper does. Cassius Ohno, he could do it. He could be with a completely different gimmick. He could be the next Mankind. He could be that non-traditional guy who the fans can get behind. So I wouldn't want to see him saddled with a tag team, but I get it. Also, I don't want to see him having to deal with Roderick Strong for his career.
Yes. Well, the NXT one was the most difficult because there isn't that many people to go for. They're either already in tag teams, or they're injured, or they're up at the top of the card.
Yeah, or they're a gamble. They're somebody that's a completely unproven commodity currently that doesn't actually have a character or gimmick yet. Yeah, I had that problem too. Lenny.
Now, I'm not 100% sure what Andres Cien Almas is doing at the moment. It is possible that he's in a tag team, but I don't think he is. He might be in a tag team that just isn't on TV much, that has a name, but I'd be very, very surprised because I watch enough NXT that I would know that. So Andre begins. I don't know if he begins, but he manipulates Roderick Strong into Roderick Strong being just completely ashamed of who he is and everything, and he teaches him all about lucha wrestlers and stuff, because Andre has a big past in lucha wrestling and unmasking lucha wrestlers. So he basically takes it upon himself and Roderick to become the new face of lucha wrestlers, and they are a new tag team called Lucha Strong. They are a heel team who believe that lucha wrestling is above all other forms of wrestling, and that other lucha wrestlers are a disgrace to lucha wrestling as well. So therefore, they don't like anybody. They believe lucha wrestling is better than everything else, and other lucha wrestlers aren't good enough to be lucha wrestlers. So they're big into unmasking things and disrespecting all the legends that wore masks and all that. So Roderick Strong and Andre Cien Almas are Lucha Strong. All right, there's the next team.
I think it's fair to say this is the first one of Lenny's tag teams that I'm just not a fan 100%. I don't like the idea of taking. He also used Strong like you, but it sounds to me like you just wanted to kill both their currently ongoing stories. Though you did say that you were behind, Lenny. You did say you were a little bit behind. So they both have things going on, and you paired them together. So I mean, I get it. I'm perfectly fine with Strong going into a tag team, but I think that pairing with Andrade and turning him heel isn't the way to go about it, personally. Especially because I'm really enjoying Andrade in Sarita, though. What's her name now? Thea Trinidad is his new manager. I like him. I like him feuding with all the other Hispanic wrestlers. with him having his problem with Cesar Bonin and with No Way Jose. So maybe it's just I'm enjoying it, and that's where my hang-up's coming from.
I mean, I guess swapping out Roderick Strong for Andrade for my tag team would make it far more exciting, but
3,
right, so this is me, and I'm bringing back, stealing horrendously, or paying homage, whichever way you prefer to look at it, a topic that Jessel came up with a few weeks ago. Um, I can't mind if he called it Save the Angle, but even if he hasn't, that's what I've called it now.
Let's be very clear. I created that segment to be used multiple times. I called it Fix a Bad Mystery, but Save the Angle, it's a perfectly good name, and what we'll call it from now on. It's a good one. I want it to keep coming back. I have no unhappiness at all. I think you did a great job. Thank you for doing it.
It links into the whole, somewhat links with SummerSlam in our show recently.
Absolutely.
Because the angle that I want us to try and fix, even Lenny, who told me he didn't see it, he didn't fix it in the first place.
He did say that.
Yeah.
You'll hear him say that in a minute.
Yes, it's the Nexus from 2010, and I wanted people to fix the angle so it didn't end in a whimper a few months later, due to the actions of some wrestlers who we won't name. So, so
I
yeah.
make no promises to not name.
So I was just fixing the angle basically. And I'll go first since I put everyone on the spot with this one. I start on the night that they show up on Raw. So the debut goes as it was, only this time no one fires Daniel Bryan. So I then bracket the 8 members of the Nexus into segments because there's 8 of them. For example, Daniel Bryan is going for the world title. Wade Barrett is going for the IC title for now. Slater and Gabriel always work together well, so they're going for the tag titles. This leaves David Otunga in a sort of Clarence Mason-esque role as the sort of, lawyer slash manager, contract negotiator, shall we say, which gives him a prominent place. Ryback's the bodyguard for Bryan and Wade. This leaves Mr. Tarver, or Michael Tarver, but he was Mr. Tarver in NXT, as their sort of hired gun type, and Darren Young, who is the X-Pac of the group. X-Pac in '98 had a habit of interfering in every bloody match, and if somebody wanted to get to DX, they would beat him up, but he won more matches than he lost, so he was a credible mid-card part of a major group. So those 4 are the outside enforcers, and because we've just introduced 8 new people onto the main roster, and we don't want them all just getting lost in the shuffle by all wrestling at the same time. So at SummerSlam, we've built a 10-man tag, akin to real life, but with less people, so that there's more time to breathe. And that's the Nexus is Bryan, Wade, Slater, Gabriel, and the debuting Ryback versus Cena, Punk, Edge, Jericho, and The Undertaker. Only Nexus win, and they win unanimously. They pick off the main eventers one by one, and even Super Cena loses when he's 5-on-1 down here. So over the course of the next few months, the 3 titles are won, Tag, IC, and then Bryan finally wins the WWE title at Survivor Series. Cena wins the 2011 Rumble, and he's facing the odds, slowly beating each member of the Nexus to get to the leader. Meanwhile, Ryback is making the save for folk, and he's getting very popular under the radar. Come WrestleMania 27, it's Bryan v Cena, only Cena loses clean, like they did a couple of years later. However, at the end of the match, Cena offers a handshake and Bryan accepts it, which is akin to Brock Angle at WrestleMania 19. The next night, the Nexus are united and they've still got the belt, but there's some foreshadowing. So they do a beat the clock, because I really love that, and it's the best way to come up with a draw, which means that both Cena and the now former IC champion, because he lost the belt to WrestleMania, Um, Wade Barrett, they're both number one contenders. So it's a triple threat at the next pay per view, Backlash, in 2011. And in this main event, Wade Barrett turns on Daniel Bryan and he wins the belt with the help of Tarver and Slater and Gabriel. Note that Ryback didn't interfere in that main event. So now we have Daniel Bryan, who is becoming a rapidly popular top face, who really wants revenge on Wade Barrett, the new top heel, more so because of the turn on Bryan than anything did Cena, of course. And in the background is Wade Barrett is relying on his bodyguards. Their Ryback starting to get more cheers than boos. And as Wade solidifies his champion by hook or by crook, his bodyguards starting to get more and more popular. By Survivor Series 2011, the main event, there's an Elimination Chamber, which is Wade Barrett versus Daniel Bryan, CM Punk, John Cena, Randy Orton, and Ryback. You should hear the massive cheer when the chamber door opens to allow Ryback into the match. And of course, he only loses the match via Wade Barrett's screw up. Or was it a screw up? Think Batista here. Wham! One storyline, we suddenly have 3 potential new main eventers over the course of a year and a half. Also, during this, Slater and Gabriel have been defending, losing, and winning back the tag titles and getting more over as a legit tag team. Tarver's a bit of a goof, but he's a big man who can kick people in the face, and as such, makes a credible running guy. And Darren Young wins more than he loses to lower guys, but he's also the chap who loses when you need to get one over the Nexus.
All right. It's interesting. I was listening. I don't know how I feel about it. I feel like you threw out a lot of the good things that Nexus did in your attempt to tell the story, because Nexus did do some things pretty okay, but you also your focus was different than mine, so it's very interesting. It's cool hearing your thought process. You definitely went far longer than I did. I ended just before 2011 Rumble, and I think Lenny ended even earlier. It's interesting.
Fixing the Nexus is a difficult task. I am not as negative towards the John Cena versus the Nexus thing as a lot of people are. I see them wording it in ways like after John Cena ruined the Nexus and things like that. I don't think it goes that far. But the Nexus did end up being dumb when it gets... It's like to think back on it and think that it actually ended up with The Core and CM Punk running Nexus. Like, how do you get from the awesome debut that everyone was talking about to The Core and CM Punk running this little watered down version of the Nexus? That is a true testament to how shitty WWE can be at times, and it's just sad. But fixing the Nexus, the main problem I thought that the Nexus had is they just weren't goal-oriented enough. We've seen so many tag teams and stables and just wrestlers that showed up and just, they want to take over and they want to beat up the top guy. Okay, we've seen that 1,000 times. You got to have like an extra thing to really stand out. And when the Nexus first were just trying to get the contracts for the guys that weren't Wade Barrett, that was a big goal that they had. And then after that, that's when they started petering out. I think the John Cena storylines definitely helped it happen faster, but I don't think Nexus would have lasted much longer even without the John Cena thing, because they just, even before Cena started beating them, they weren't really going, I don't know, they didn't seem like they had a plan that was super interesting. But I'm not sure what I would have done differently that's that much better. Let's see. I would have still had them debut in the same way they did, showing up that night on Raw and beating up John Cena and CM Punk and Justin Roberts. I still would have had Daniel Bryan choke out Justin Roberts with the tie, and get suspended and all that. I thought that was that is interesting to the Nexus story, that they kick out Daniel Bryan and all that fun stuff. But leading into SummerSlam, I would have liked to see the Nexus's plan be to reinvent the way that WWE brings up wrestlers and the way that they train their guys. Like the NXT show, I would like to see the Nexus be like, look, we want that. We want that to be our thing. We want to be able to have control over who's coming in there and who's going to get called up into this roster. So basically, think of it like the NWO for the new guys, where the Nexus gets to choose who goes into NXT and who gets to come out and then get called up into the Nexus. So the NXT is just a breeding ground for the Nexus, is what I thought would be really, really interesting. I think that would have already made NXT way more interesting, because obviously after the first season of NXT that we know of back then, it is just complete trash. I mean, with Eli Cotton, not that I hated Eli Cotton, but just for an example. And then there's a lot of obstacle course thingies. It just was really silly. It's not the NXT we know now. If you don't know about it, it was completely different. But I would like to have seen Wade Barrett and those original NXT and Nexus members try and take over that NXT and be like, we want that, and we want to be able to farm our own talents, because the WWE machine has made all these clones that are all the exact same kind of guys, and we can make them better than that, because look at us. This is who we are, and we're better than the WWE machine, because they don't want us to have contracts. So going into SummerSlam, the main event is for control over NXT, rather than just the match that it was. So you still have Daniel Bryan come back and join Team Cena, but in the match you have Daniel Bryan turn on Team Cena. So he comes back, he's going to be a babyface, but he understands the motivation of Nexus, so he turns on Team Cena. I know they have another name. I'm sure they weren't called Team Cena. And he helps Nexus win, and Nexus gets control of NXT. So now we see NXT as this used to breed the new people that then Nexus can bring up and continue growing their group bigger and bigger and bigger. I don't know how long you can go on with that, but I think you could keep refreshing it, and you could keep making Nexus feel fresher. Wade Barrett was so wonderful as a voice piece and a figurehead that having him come into NXT and pick out guys that he thought were good enough, or kick off guys, would be really entertaining. They could build some really strong tag teams instead of just having different versions of Heath Slater with somebody. I think there's a lot of cool things you could have done there with having them like their own little company where they're trying to build of new guys that aren't the WWE prototype. So that's how I would say you fix the Nexus. I know it's not a super well thought out plan. I don't have like a beginning to end. But I think you could have gotten more out of it than you currently got out of it.
Okay, so other than disagreeing about Cena's role in the Nexus and all this, which I very much disagree, I actually think the new motivation you've posited, Lenny, makes a lot of sense. Brian going back to the Nexus is really interesting, and I really like that. I'm not sure. I don't like Nexus being treated as a smaller scale, like you have it, but in the context of doing it smaller scale, lower on the card, I think it works. I think you pitched a story that works.
Yeah, I thought it was amusing how he linked it back to NXT. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Like you said on mine, it's hard to know if I'm for or against.
Well, I have a lot written down, so I'm just going to start. The Nexus debut was absolutely incredible. It came out of nowhere and really shook everything up. You see them destroy Cena, they destroy the ring, they destroy the barricade, they destroy Vince and Bret Hart and so many people over and over again. Like, the impact they made is incredible. A bunch of things happened that killed the Nexus, and that's very unfortunate. A lot of it booking, a lot of it storytelling. But one thing I had completely forgotten was tied into this story was the anonymous Raw general manager. Like, the anonymous general manager exists because Nexus beat the hell out of Bret Hart, who was general manager, so the new general manager wanted to stay anonymous. Like, I forgot that those two stories were intertwined. So, in fixing the Nexus, I'm also going to be fixing the anonymous general manager, which is really nice. That's kind of cool. Didn't expect that when I started this. Okay, so for the first part, let's keep the debut exactly the same. Destroy everything. Let Daniel Bryan get fired. Then you have the attack on Bret Hart. You have the anonymous general manager. You have the title match for Barrett get reinstated. All that was fine. All that worked. Nexus's momentum hadn't been killed. At the pay-per-view Fatal 4-Way, and Nexus shows up, beats everyone up, except this time they don't touch Cena. They just let Cena be. No one lays a hand on him. So as he's beating them up for interfering, they don't touch him. And Cena sees that everybody's laid out in the match, and he starts yelling at Barrett. Oh, this isn't good. This isn't what I want. Cena refuses to win the title this way. He will not let Nexus cheat for him. Because as much as Cena didn't act like it at that point in time, he was supposed to be the babyface. So I'm going to let him be a babyface. So you have Cena arguing with Barrett and all that. And while that's happening, Sheamus crawls over and pins Orton to win the title off of Cena. So Cena's dealing with the Nexus. So that's our first major change. Next pay-per-view is Money in the Bank, where Cena and Sheamus had a cage match. In the normal one, the Nexus come torment Cena and allow Sheamus to sneak away with a win. Well, this time, Nexus still attacks, but instead of the really incredible image of Michael Tarver coming out with bolt cutters to try to cut his way into the cage, and the referee just taking it and throwing it away, and then the Barrett yelling at the refs to give him the keys, and they throw the keys into the audience, really making it feel like the Nexus is not planned here, and even the referees are trying to protect the sanctity of the match. Let's switch the order of those things. So the Nexus comes out, beats up all the refs on the outside, comes out and says, "Give me the keys," and he throws the keys in the audience. So then you have Tarver come with the bolt cutters and actually cut his way into the cage. So now the Nexus are ruining this match, destroying the ring, destroying the cage, the walls of the cage fall. It's just, it is awful. And this time, they absolutely destroy Cena. They fucking crush him. You can hear no promos being given, but you can hear over the camera, "Oh, we offered you an olive branch, John Cena." That's my Wade Barrett. That's me attempting to do Wade Barrett. "We offered you an olive branch. You didn't take it, so you deserve this. You getting what you deserve," so on and so forth. And they destroy Sheamus too. But as Skip Sheffield beats the hell out of him, he's thrown through the busted cage, and he does indeed end up landing on the ground, technically winning, though the pay-per-view does not mention it. No one mentions it. The pay-per-view goes off air with the whole match being ruined. So on Raw, we find out that the official call is that Sheamus did escape first, technically, so he does still hold the WWE title. On that Raw, you have Randy Orton become number one contender for SummerSlam, and you have the Nexus tell John Cena, "You're the problem. You're the reason that we're having everything, all these problems. You and the way this company fawns over you, John Cena. They treat new guys like dirt, new guys like us. You got to wrestle one of the greatest wrestlers of all time in your debut, Kurt Angle. And we debuted with promo contests about flowers, wind, and worthless competition, made to breed hatred between us. But we're stronger together, John Cena. And Cena, we want you to be stronger with us. Join us." And yes, I actually have them mention Kurt Angle, because that's another taboo. You're not allowed to mention TNA. So have Wade Barrett mention Kurt Angle. Have him actually drop Kurt Angle's name to really show that they are not playing by Vince's rules. So SummerSlam 2010. Now, so far, I've only made a few little tweaks, but for the most part, the Nexus storyline is the same. And at SummerSlam 2010, Nexus should have won, but instead, John Cena threw his weight around in the real world, and he had it squashed. And we know this to be a true fact, because both Jericho and Edge have said as much. They were both in the match, they're both reputable sources. John Cena threw all his weight around in real life to change the finish to the match, and Nexus losing that SummerSlam match was the beginning of the downturn, and John Cena constantly one-upping them over and over again is what destroyed the Nexus. So here's where I'm going to veer off a lot. We have the exact same match set up with the same participants, including the now returning babyface Daniel Bryan. But the Nexus does what the Nexus does, and before the match even begins, Nexus comes down and they attack everyone before the bell. They try to destroy the ring, they try to destroy everything, but this time the babyfaces are ready. They are absolutely prepared. There are 4 world champions alone between them, if not more, in that match, ready to face off the Nexus. So the Nexus runs away because the babyfaces were prepared and they aren't ready to get. Nexus isn't prepared to get their equivalent exchange, essentially. But Cena grabs a mic as the Nexus walks up and says, "We will never give up. I will never give up. You cannot take this company away from us, from the WWE Universe. Now get back in this ring so we can kick your asses." Wow! Everyone goes crazy. And then you have the match as it happened, except this time, Wade Barrett pins Cena instead of Cena running roughshod through half of the Nexus. And Wade Barrett stands tall at the end of the night. Everyone that got beat, especially the 2 that Skip Sheffield absolutely destroyed with the meat hook clothesline, they are off TV for a few weeks to sell their injuries. The Nexus hurts people. That is what they do. You don't have the beat the clock match. You don't have the one-on-one matches. You don't have Darren Young getting kicked out of the Nexus for no reason. The Nexus is about not having competition between them, but working together. So having Darren Young get kicked out is the opposite message that the story is trying to tell. So Darren Young doesn't get kicked out. Barrett gets the title shot he deserves at Night of Champions. There is no 6-pack challenge where Barrett gets screwed. I get my championship. My championship contract match as one of 6 participants in a not as good version of the Elimination Chamber. No, screw that. Barrett versus Sheamus, 1-on-1. You have Barrett win the title that night. On that same night, Gabriel and Slater win the tag titles. Over the next few weeks, you have Darren Young win the U.S. title off Daniel Bryan, and Skip Sheffield win the IC title off Ziggler. So every title except for the World Heavyweight Championship is in Nexus. At Hell in a Cell, you have the Cena Barrett match, and Cena is forced to join the Nexus there. You keep things moving along, basically as they were, but now Nexus is a real threat. They have the titles, they have Cena, who is still trying to undermine them from within. But at this point, Nexus doesn't look like a bunch of losers that Cena keeps one-upping. Now, they're actually a threat, so when Cena's fighting against them, he actually feels like an underdog, unlike in the real world, where the real story was Cena always won, he always won. Why did you ever think he wouldn't win? Cena always wins. You have the Cena, you are in Nexus, you are the guest referee, so in this title match between Orton and Barrett, if I don't win, you're fired. And you have Cena do the thing where he did before, and he gives Orton the title. So now the title's back on Orton, but Barrett had a title run. So, he looks credible. Who'd thunk? That would be a good idea. So then you have Cena be fired. And you know what? When Cena's fired, you actually have him be off TV for a while, instead of showing up every week. That way, when Cena starts doing Nexus's tactics to Nexus after a few weeks of beating up the guys backstage and just showing up, it totally works. Instead of, what he did anyway, which was never be fired, actually be there the whole time. Stupid. So there are a lot of places you can go from here. Didn't want to keep going throughout the whole story, but I think at this point I've now fixed Nexus. Nexus now works. We now have credible champions. We now have a timeline that makes more sense. Cena doesn't bury everyone. In fact, you could even keep the Wade Barrett getting literally buried by a pile of chairs match with John Cena. You can actually keep that, which is, I'm not joking, John Cena literally buried Wade Barrett beneath a pile of chairs. He yanked a shit ton of chairs out of the sky, and they all fell on top of him, symbolically and literally destroying the Nexus from ever mattering and ruining Wade Barrett's career. On the January 3rd episode of Nexus, after Wade Barrett got buried, they say that they're now under new management. So instead of having that be Punk, which was a silly call and didn't really work, and then split up to the thing that Lenny was talking about with the core and all that, which was nonsense. You don't do that. Have them tease who their new management is, and you finally reveal that it was the anonymous Raw general manager the whole time, because the anonymous Raw general manager was helping them the whole time. That's just how it was, so that's what you do. And you reveal that new management and the anonymous general manager were both Kevin Nash. I tried to stay as true to the story as WWE had it, and just fixed it with little tweaks. There you go. That's my story. What do you think?
Yeah, I hate to break it to you, Jessel, but that was the worst English accent since Daphne Moon's family on Frasier.
Oh, I'm not surprised. That's fine. I wasn't trying to be any good. I was just trying to sound like Barrett in my head. Be entertaining.
I mean, it runs as they did, but you fixed the two main issues, that i.e. Cena doesn't kill them at SummerSlam and Barrett actually wins the belts. But yes, I think all three work better than Cena killing everyone at once.
Wade Barrett, that's right. I say that. Oh, I'm an Englishman, all right.
Wow, breaking news, Wade Barrett's Australian.
Oh, that is Australian. I knew I was doing it really bad and really wrong, but I couldn't figure out exactly what I was doing. I hope Lenny liked what I did. We'll see. I hope you guys liked what I did, because we had a lot of interesting things to say. Let us know. Yell at us in comments. Look for us on Twitter, so on and so forth. You had anything else you want to say, Michael, before we get out of here?
Nope.
All right. Well, then, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.